You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I'm joined this week by the guy who took over from me last week to talk to the TPEG Alumni Competition winners, Nick Weisenberger. Nick, how's it going?
Pretty good. Big shoes to fill, but I hope I did a okay job.
I haven't listened yet. We're recording this a little bit early, so I'm sure you did great. But we want to talk a little bit, Nick, up in your neck of the woods in Columbus, Ohio. There's a really unique amusement park that actually had their first ever Halloween event that you went to. The Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, they had their first ever Halloween event, which they are calling Zombezi Bay, which is a kind of a play on their Zoombiezi Bay Water Park. And, I'll ask you real quick, what were your thoughts attending this event?
Oh, it was great, especially for a first-time event. I thought it was really well done. There's 4 haunted houses, 2 scare zones, and it's the only haunted attraction in Central Ohio that also has amusement rides. So that's really cool and unique.
I love it. Well, I'm glad I put you on the spot because we've got a very special guest on the podcast this weekend who was probably going to be really mad if you said anything negative about the event. But this week on the podcast, we're going to have Anthony Sabo, who is Vice President of Water Park Operations and Guest Services for the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. Anthony, how's it going? And you're not too mad at Nick after that description, are you?
No, he hit the nail on the head. He did great. Thank you so much for having me today, too. I'm really looking forward to talking about our new product.
Absolutely. Well, I guess for those of our listeners who don't know the name Anthony Sabo or don't know very much about the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, let's start with you. Kind of what's your background in the industry and how long have you been with Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, and what's the story about the zoo and aquarium?
Okay. No, so this is now my 20th season in the amusement industry. As I think a lot of us in this industry got our start at the bottom, and when we were really young. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. I grew up 10 minutes from Kennywood Park in Pittsburgh. And when I was about 10, 11 years old, just something started to click. Like I really enjoyed going to Kennywood, and I started to think of it as maybe this is a place I wanted to work. So when I was 15, when I had the first opportunity to do so, I applied and started in the games department at Kennywood. I did that for four seasons, 4 summers, really enjoyed it. And then after those 4 years, I was getting into college at that point. I was looking for something, still wanted to stay at Kennywood, but looking for something a little bit different. So I ended up in the maintenance department at Kennywood. And it's completely different when you go from being front-facing, guest-facing to going back of house, especially at that age and working in a place that I loved working. To see the nuts and bolts of how not only the rides worked, but the park as a whole worked, it was just really cool. And it really spoke to me as this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. So I ended up working in maintenance at Kennywood throughout the rest of college. And then after I graduated, I stayed on for a few years after that as well. But then there's so many things, ebb and flow in this industry. Kind of hit a point where I was looking for some other options. And was fortunate enough that I got hired as the rides maintenance manager at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. It was in that role here for 5 years. Ended up going to Universal Orlando for a couple years and worked in the attractions operations department there. And then was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to come back in my current role to Zoombiezi Bay at the Columbus Zoo in 2019. So kind of been in a couple different spots, but a lot of great organizations, a lot of great parks, and really happy to be back here at the zoo and at Zoombiezi Bay.
Tell us a little bit then about what makes the Columbus Zoo unique, because you have the zoo proper, and then there's a section of the zoo called Adventure Cove, which includes some rides, and then you also have a water park as well.
Correct. This property is, especially when you look at it through the scope of the amusement industry, is really a unique property. It's now really the Columbus Zoo family of parks. We sit on 500 acres in Powell, Ohio, and that includes the Columbus Zoo, the Zoombiezi Bay Water Park, the Safari Golf Course, all 3 of those located in Powell. And then we also manage the Wilds, which is a conservation facility, a 10,000-acre conservation facility in Cumberland, Ohio, which is about 90 minutes from here. So this is a truly large property with a lot of interesting facets to it. And in 2006, at that time, the old Wyandotte Lake property, which was a Six Flags property, was located right next door to the Columbus Zoo. And little known, I think, generally at that time was that Six Flags actually leased the property from the city of Columbus and from the Columbus Zoo. They owned the assets that were on the property that were added over the years, but they did not own the land. So in 2006, the zoo ended up purchasing those assets and taking over operation of the Wyandotte Lake property. The zoo decided at that time that they wanted to keep the water park aspect, but do a complete refresh, rebrand on the property. So in 2007, that whole side of the property was closed. And in 2008, what is now Zoombiezi Bay opened as a standalone water park. But at the time, the zoo decided they wanted to incorporate the rides into the zoo itself rather than keep them as part of Zoombiezi Bay. So Jungle Jack's Landing was born out of all of that. And that area sat between the zoo and Zoombiezi Bay and was slated to be really its amusement park within the zoo. But over the years, that area just didn't work quite as much as well as it was intended. The one thing about being at the zoo is, our guests are coming to see the animals and to experience, the education and the conservation side of the zoo facility. And Jungle Jack's Landing just didn't quite fit with that. So in 2017, the decision was made to completely redo the Jungle Jack's Landing area. And in 2020, of all years, naturally, the brand new Adventure Cove region, $40 million region, opened as part of the zoo. And that region now includes seals and sea lions, our Animal Encounters Village with all of our promotions animals, the ones that go out to our local schools, those live in Animal Encounters Village. And what was left of Jungle Jack's Landing now is incorporated into Adventure Cove. So we still have those rides as part of the zoo, but that whole area now is reinvigorated and really is a part of the zoo proper for really the first time.
That's awesome. And I know we're here to talk Halloween, but I can't talk Columbus Zoo and Aquarium on a roller coaster podcast without talking about the other brand new for 2021 edition you guys have installed this year, the Zamperla manufactured Tidal Twist, which is a family spinning roller coaster. How's it been received by guests so far this season? I know I've ridden it, Nick's ridden it, Kyle on our team has also ridden it. So we've gotten almost half of the Coaster101 team has ridden Tidal Twist this year, but for the general public, how has the new roller coaster been received?
It's been received extremely well. So Tidal Twist did replace our Jungle River Falls / Redwood Falls log flume that was in that location. In summer in Columbus, it can get very hot, but then in the shoulder seasons in particular, it doesn't work quite as well having the log flume there. And it was operationally one of our more challenging attractions. So it was time for a change. And when we made that change, we decided to make that change, we wanted to replace it with another marquee attraction. And a log flume, definitely is a marquee attraction, especially for our property. So we wanted to replace it with something that had a similar impact, but hit the demographics a little bit different. And Tidal Twist has really done that for us. A great thing about that ride is that it has a 42-inch height requirement. And being a zoo and the zoo attracting a younger demographic, that really helps drive our ride ticket sales and our ride wristband sales. The zoo's also a little bit unique when you compare it to other modern amusement and theme parks, is we're still pay per ride. So rides are not included in zoo admission. Mm-hmm. We do have memberships that include the rides, and we offer a ride wristband that includes all the rides. But that kind of goes back to a little older school approach to operating an amusement park too. You want to make sure you're adding attractions that are good standalone attractions that can help drive those ticket sales. And between the height requirement and the fact that it's a good family coaster, but it has some pop to it. It's not just a basic ride that has minimal forces. It actually has a little bit of zing to it, so it can attract the teens and adults as well, and not just the younger kids. So overall, response has been really solid this summer. It will stay open in the zoo weekends through our Boo at the Zoo, our family-friendly Halloween event on the zoo side. So it'll stay open weekends through October, and then it'll be done for the year and be reopening again next spring.
Love it. Yeah, when we wrote it, it was Nick and Nick's young son, Henry, and Kyle on our team and me. And Kyle and I are substantially larger than Nick and Henry. And for some reason, we thought it was a good idea to put Kyle and I on the right-hand side. And so we got it spinning pretty good. So
yeah.
That's where the fun is, right? You got to get that good spin going.
The spin definitely adds that extra level of thrill. But it's still like, it's not too much. I think it's like the perfect amount of spinning. I like that it doesn't spin throughout the whole course. It unlocks halfway through. That definitely adds a uniqueness to it.
But on the subject of new thrills at Zoombiezi Bay, how's this for a segue? We're going to talk Halloween. We're officially in the spooky season, as it were, coming up on October. I think it'll be October by the time this podcast posts. Let's talk Zombiezi Bay. And I guess our question is, where did the idea, again, you don't think zoo, water park, haunted attraction, those are not things in the industry that often go together. So when and how did the idea for Zombezi kind of come together?
Oh, it's a great question. And its origins go back to Wyandotte Lake. So Wyandotte, for I think it was about 8 seasons, did their own Halloween event. And after the zoo took over operation of Wyandotte Lake, the zoo kept quite a few members of management from Wyandotte Lake, and they came over to manage either Zoombiezi Bay or to work on the zoo side. So in those early Zoombiezi years, it was already a discussion point, and actually is something that paid dividends for us this year. The picnic area that was built back in 2008 was intentionally built with having haunts in mind. So the structures were designed with the electrical and the layouts to be able to install a haunted house in the future, and it finally paid dividends for us this year. So that's really where the origin started. It was about 2009 is when the discussions really began again of, hey, Wyandotte did this Halloween event. Why don't we do something similar at Zoombiezi Bay? Even then, the zoo had its Boo at the Zoo, its family-friendly event. So why don't we do both? Why don't we kind of become that one-stop shop for Halloween? And just like, so many other good ideas, other ideas come ahead of it. So over the years, it gained some traction here and there, but it never really started to take off. The most recent iteration of what has become Zombezi Bay started again about 2015, 2016, when we really started in the fall taking the trips, going out to other haunts, going out to other parks, and seeing what other people were doing and seeing what we liked, and started to lay the groundwork of, okay, these are some of the ideas that we would like to put into fruition. And all of that really started to come to a head in 2020 with COVID, and with losing, for us, we lost about a month of our operating season in 2020, plus, of course, operating under the restrictions that we did in 2020. As a standalone water park that's in a northern climate, and you only have Memorial Day to Labor Day to really generate your business, to lose that significant of a chunk of your season, you have to make changes and you have to evolve. And that was always a discussion point around Halloween, was even when we just had a wet, cool summer, well, we need to extend our season. The only way we can do it is with Halloween. But once COVID happened, that really truly pushed us over the edge and gave us the green light to say, we need to extend our operating season. We can't keep doing this. So that we got the green light in July of 2020 to proceed with this event for 2021. And we were able to utilize a lot of that information we had collected over the prior 11 years to start to build what you now see today.
I love it. Well, a lot of people, I feel like, listening to you talk, I feel like a lot of people think COVID as kind of a negative, and it certainly was in terms of admission and things like that. But did the extra additional time while Zoombiezi Bay was closed and then operating at kind of a restricted capacity, did that allow you guys to spend a little bit more time, or was it a blessing in disguise a little bit, or would you have just, obviously the answer is you would have rather just been normal and then had a Halloween event, but did it allow any extra time to kind of produce or create where you wouldn't have normally had time to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more you talk to operators in this industry, you're going to get a very similar answer too, as the dust hopefully continues to settle. COVID completely upended our business model, just like everybody else. And it forced you to get creative. It forced you to start to think outside the box. And it really forced us to challenge what we thought were known facts about our own business. it's very, very rare that you get the opportunity to completely upend your own business model, because who wants to? Why would you ever want to upend your own business model, especially if it's working for you? COVID did provide that, where we had to go back to the drawing board on so many things, critically evaluate the overall operation and what we were doing, and challenge the known norms. And Zombezi was part of that. That I think ultimately we would have got here. We would have got to a Halloween event, but having to look at the business in a different light really forced the issue to say, no, we absolutely have to do this. In addition to all the effects on our summer operation, and we are changing up some of the things that we do in the summer too, just based off of what we saw with guest behavior and guest flow and reduced capacity scenario that we had in 2020.
And Nick, you mentioned as someone who's attended this event, and right now, just talking to you, Anthony, like I want to get up there for this event next year. It's not going to happen this year. Like October filled up really fast for me, but I do need to come up there. But Nick, you mentioned there were 4 mazes and 2 scare zones. Can you give me a real quick rundown of what's going on at Zombezi Bay?
We definitely are the largest, not just the newest, but the largest Halloween event in Central Ohio now. So we do have 4 separate haunted houses, which is more than any other here, each with their own unique theme, each in different areas of the park. We have 2 outdoor scare zones, which are decomposed and photosynthesis, which again, and especially in Central Ohio, no one else in this region has something quite like that. But one of the coolest things that we introduced was 6 of the rides that are normally a part of the zoo. The fences kind of moved for Zombezi Bay, so those 6 rides are now a part of Zombezi Bay, including the Sea Dragon, our vintage wooden coaster. But in addition to that, we wanted to plus some of the other attractions that we had. And one of the ones I'm really most excited about and proud about is our bumper cars. So they're a set of RDC bumper cars. And, in the summer, they're a good attraction, good family attraction. But especially for this demographic, we wanted to add a little spice to it. So we actually nearly full enclosed the building. We added some really serious rock music to it. And we have an LED light wall that takes up one whole side of the building. And that light wall dances to the music while you're on the ride. So it's not, the house lights drop out. You go to a much darker atmosphere, and really the only light you're getting is off of that light wall, in addition to the rock music. So it is a really cool experience. And just an example of the kind of the unique things, the new things that we were trying to bring to the table with Zombezi Bay.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to ride the bumper cars. I went over and checked them out, and they looked pretty cool. So I'll have to go back and get on those. I did ride the Falcon Fall drop tower for the first time, so that was a lot of fun. You do a lot of little drops, but you do a lot of them, and it's just. What are some of the challenges then of building, not doing a haunt for the first time, but also making a Halloween haunt attraction inside of a water park? Because when most other theme parks do a haunt, they usually have some buildings that they can use and repurpose as a haunted house, but you really didn't have any large buildings that you could use. So what are some of the challenges, and how did you go about making the haunts?
It's a very good point. And I think one big difference that we encounter versus some of our theme park, amusement park brethren is there's a psychological barrier there too. People think of a water park, you don't necessarily think of the fall. You don't think of outside of the summer season. Whereas in the amusement industry, especially now, as mature as it has gotten, you do. And we are at the disadvantage that as a water park, we can't use any of our attractions for this event.
Right.
Not a whole lot of people want to go swimming in the wave pool when it's 48 degrees outside. So that's a whole different wrinkle to add into this. We can use our physical plant, we can use our midways, we can use our food and beverage locations, retail, restrooms, we can use all that, but we couldn't use the attractions. So when we were developing Zombezi Bay, knowing that we had the rides to help bolster the lineup, what we were going for was maximum usage of the space, because we want to be able to spread people out across the park and hit on the areas that we thought would generate the best traffic. So for 2 of our haunted houses, which are Eternal Darkness and Sinister Sideshow, those 2 are under giant tents. So we added a whole new concrete layout space this past summer that we'd never had before. that pulls double duty for us now. So it's layout lounge space in the summer, and then starting in mid-August, chairs come out, the 2 giant tents go up, and then those 2 haunted houses go in. We do have one all outdoor haunted house, which is Catacombs. That is right around our Baboon Lagoon kids play area, our multi-level play structure. It's kind of a weird dynamic there. You have, big kids play structure in the summer, and then haunted house sitting right beside it for the fall. And then for that 4th one, which is Pleasant Screams, it is utilizing 3 of those picnic pavilions in the picnic area. So that is also kind of on the ride side and helps draw some of the people that are looking for the haunted houses over to the ride side too. So it was definitely, it was a challenge. It was even a little more challenging than I was expecting, to try to spread the park out as well as we could, while utilizing the assets that we do have in order to pull this off.
And I'm looking at the mazes, and you did a great job of describing them kind of by name. We've got Catacombs, we've got Eternal Darkness, Pleasant Screams Laboratory, and Sinister Sideshow. I know a lot of times with a park, they either rely on IP or they rely on kind of that horror trope, is what I'm going to call. Where did you guys take your inspiration for these, the 4 haunted houses and the 2 scare zones? Was there any bit of your time at Universal Orlando during Halloween Horror Nights that played a role in this?
I think all the experiences definitely played a role in this, and HHN would have been one of them, absolutely. Really, we took, there's a core group of us here at Zoombiezi and the zoo that have been going to these things now since 2015, 2016. And all over those years, we took notes. We took notes on the things that we liked, and we took notes on the things that we viewed other guests liking. And that's really what ultimately drove the 4 themes that we came up with. We did use a third party, which we can talk about them here in a little bit, about how they helped us create this thing. So they had their input in this too. But that's really where the impetus for those themes came from. And being a location too, that is, we have 4 haunts that have to get set up in August and have to get torn down in November. So that plays a role in this also. We want to make sure that the themes that we choose are ones that can be very effective for the 2 months that they're up, but they're also very effective for us to set up and tear down in the amount of time that we have to do that with. And I really do, based off of these first couple weekends and seeing the guest response, I think we've done a very good job of hitting on things that the guests are enjoying and the themes that are the most effective too.
Definitely. Yeah, and out of the 4 houses, I'd say the one that was my favorite was Eternal Darkness. It's very appropriately named. It's when you first go in there, it's like pitch black, and you're just like, you can't even see where you're going, and you're just like reaching in front of you. And I just thought that one had the best overall like variety of effects. And yeah, that was definitely my favorite one. I also Sinister Sideshow, I think, had the biggest jump scare for me. I won't spoil what it was for anyone listening, but
I think I know which one you mean.
Yeah, it's just awesome when like you go into it knowing that they're trying to scare you, and you still get scared, you still get startled. Like, that's awesome.
I've been really impressed too. With, speaking of Sinister Sideshow, like that's that's your 3D clown sideshow type of haunt. But I've been really impressed with the guest reaction to that one. I think standing at the exit and watching people come out of that haunt, we've done a very good job of mixing in good actor scares and good animation scares, because it's being very effective, very effective.
Yeah, it's not just people jumping out at you. There's lighting effects, fog effects, there's things with the props, and even a couple animatronics in there. It's the variety is really cool. And so yeah, going back to that then is, did the zoo, how much of the zoo how much did you guys do in-house, and how much was bringing in some other companies to help with that?
So our haunted houses and our scare zones, they were designed and built and developed by Boneyard Productions International. They're based out of Massachusetts. They've had 25 plus years in the haunt industry of developing these types of attractions. And that crew was really fantastic to work with in developing Zombezi Bay. We signed on with them late summer in 2020 to develop these attractions, and it was pretty much weekly all throughout the fall, winter, and spring of just updates and talking through the designs on these houses, utilizing their expertise in what are good layouts, what's an effective layout. We would put out the ideas of like, we want a laser swamp. Like, we really like that effect, but don't know where's it going to fit? What's the best house for it? And then we're able to utilize their expertise to guide us to make sure we had the right spot for us. As far as the park itself, that was wholly done by our own staff. I'm extremely proud of the work that the staff of Zoombiezi Bay and the Columbus Zoo have done to get this off of the ground. This is a monumental undertaking. I'm not going to sugarcoat that in the least. It's rare these days, with as mature as the haunt industry has gotten within the amusement industry, that you start these things from scratch anymore. But starting one from scratch, and anyone that's done it before, I can tell you the same thing. It is a monumental undertaking. You are essentially creating a whole new park, especially for someone like us, where it's a similar type of business, but it is not the same type of business. So we had to reinvent our marketing plan. We had to reinvent our website. We have a whole new website now for Zombezi Bay. So all these things that you wouldn't necessarily think would have to be part of the process are all part of the process. But our team did a lot of the in-park theming in-house. And the directive that they had from me was that I don't want any white light in the park. Like, we wanted to have a complete change out of lighting throughout this place to set that atmosphere and set that mood. And we pulled it off. Like, you walk around this place, you're going to see blue, green, orange, red. You're not going to see white light. You go into the bathrooms, you're not going to see white light. Like, it is 100% everywhere where we made those changes. And the park really looks fantastic thanks to that.
Yeah, the hard work definitely paid off. It looked really cool. So, I mean, how much time did you have then between having to close down the water park and then get the turnaround time to getting the haunt set up?
So we started the process about August 1st, and that was with the lighting changes in the water park. We do a lot of nighttime events in Zoombiezi Bay in the summer, but those nighttime events start to wind down at the beginning of August. So we started making a lot of those lighting switchovers about August 1st. It really started to wind up and speed up about August 15th. That's when our daily operation ends for the water park, and we just go to weekends only. So those weeks that we were closed, we were setting up as much as we possibly could. But truly, the bulk of the work for in-park setup, at least, happened in those 10 days between Labor Day and Media Night on September 16th. Pretty much all of us were here 12, 14 hours a day getting this place flipped and ready. The advantage we had with Boneyard was that they came in about August 20th. And we had the tents set up at that point, so those two haunts were able to go up before Labor Day. And then we were also able to start Pleasant Screams in the pavilions the week leading up to Labor Day. But even Catacombs, because it sits on the lounge deck for our kids area, that couldn't start until the day after Labor Day. So even Catacombs, as an entire haunt, went up within about 7 days and had to get completely finished and then inspected and signed off by the fire marshal in order to be able to operate this year too. So there was a lot of action that was happening in that month period leading up to this.
What was the latest you were working at the park prior to this event? Were you out at like 2, 3 in the morning, or was it a little bit better than that?
It was a little bit better than that. I mean, there were definitely nights we were here till midnight, especially that 10 days between Labor Day and Media Night. I think we did 4 nighttime walks. Obviously, you need to see your product at night when it's really going to shine. And those nights we were here till almost midnight, around midnight, every one of those nights. But it is a labor of love, and I think anyone that works in this industry and is an enthusiast in this industry can tell you that we love what we do. We love creating something that is as cool as this. We want the guests to have a great time. We want to share what we have to offer here.
And I know this is probably like asking you to pick one of your favorite children, but do you have a favorite maze or scare zone, or even, if it's the bumper cars, do you have a favorite experience with Zombezi Bay that maybe something that surprised you or something you're really particularly proud of?
It is a hard one to quantify. I mean, all of it, I'm really happy with all of it. But I think the 2 biggest ones that I'm the most pleased with is that overall park atmosphere. just the other night, I was standing on top of one of our slide towers, which gives us a fantastic bird's eye view of the whole property, and just looking out and seeing all the multiple colors, the fog lifting up out of the fog machines, and the rides in action. Just the overall experience is just fantastic. As far as the haunts are concerned, Eternal Darkness is my favorite. They all offer something really cool, but for me personally, especially as someone who's worked in the industry now for a while and has gone to a lot of haunts, there's very little that scares me in a haunted house anymore. Very, very little that makes me jump. And when we're designing Eternal Darkness, I intentionally wanted to create something that even got me scared, because if I could get me scared, then we have a really good product here. And we've made some adjustments to it here over these first couple of weeks, and I think now we really have a product that, even for myself that's walked through it multiple times now, there's a couple points in that house where I'll even stop and be like, okay, I'm not sure where I'm at and where I'm going. So I love that one. I love the experience that one provides.
Yeah, you mentioned that you had already made some tweaks between the preview and the opening day and now. Can you talk about any of those?
On the whole, there are a lot of smaller adjustments and smaller tweaks, which I think is another thing I'm proud about, really proud about from our team, that they did such a great job planning this out that we got to media night and thought, all right, we're 95%. Like we don't have any here major things that really need to get changed. But one of the things that we did with Eternal Darkness is that is where the laser swamp ended up, was in Eternal Darkness. But after we fired it up for the first time, we realized that it was bleeding out a lot of light into the rest of the haunt. So it wasn't making it as dark as we wanted it to be and what we were going. So we made some adjustments to the orientation of the lasers. We also added some caps to a couple areas to cancel out that light bleed. And now it's fixed. I can say that confidently. So that was one big change, especially for me, someone who really likes that haunt, that I really enjoy.
So you said laser swamp?
Yes.
So is that the room where there's like a horizontal light going across the room?
Correct.
And you can't see anything below the light.
Yes.
So there could be like a scare actor right beside you, and you can't see them until they pop up above the light.
Yes.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it uses a haze effect. So as the haze hits that laser, it makes it look like a swamp from pretty much the waist down. So you can't see it. You can't see anything below you. We also added some other things in that room now too that might distract your attention even further as you walk through that space. That's even cooler yet too.
That's awesome.
And then in the park as a whole, a lot of smaller tweaks with like our scare zones. Change up the lighting effects a little bit, get people looking in other directions than we initially wanted them to look at. In our Pleasant Screams haunt, a couple areas where we wanted to add a little, just more stuff. More stuff for people to see as they're walking through, throw a little bit more misdirection in there. And then, of course, our scare actors, who've been doing a fantastic job so far, been extremely proud of that group and everything they've done for a year one attraction.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was going to compliment them. Like the scare actors, I thought were doing a really good job. Like every single person was trying their hardest to scare the crap out of me. Like there was nobody like taking a break or like, I'm going to go a little lighter this time. Like no, every single person was just giving it their all. It was awesome. Yeah,
no, I've been so pleased with them and the training that they've all gone through. And of course now as we're kind of getting deeper into this season, they're starting to hone their craft now too. So they're in the houses, they're finding those spots where, okay, this is a really good spot for me to wait. I can really get people here. So to see that that evolution has been really cool too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to go back real quick to the laser swamp. I've seen that effect before. I didn't know it had a name, and I'm going to refer to it as a laser swamp for the rest of my life because that is the best possible description I've ever heard of that haze laser effect. But those also just result in some of the craziest scares I've ever seen in a haunted attraction. So I'm glad that you guys get to utilize those.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other thing I do want to talk about as it relates to Zombezi Bay is on top of the rides, on top of the mazes, on top of the scare zones. You guys are also doing a Brews and Bites tasting event. I think the theme park culinary experience for in the past couple of years has just been elevated and taken to an entirely new level. And with an event like this, a first year event, I work in events full time, and you're so concerned about getting everything right. that you just to throw another event on top of this is just outstanding. But what can you tell us about Brews and Bites, and what's your favorite thing that you've eaten at Brews and Bites?
That's going to be a tall order too. So what we wanted to get with Brews and Bites is we want an experience with Zombezi Bay that isn't just the scary side of Halloween. We're going to absolutely attract everyone who's looking for that scare, who's looking to go through the haunted houses. But there's a lot of people out there that just enjoy the fall, just enjoy the atmosphere, and aren't looking to go through those haunted houses. So we wanted to create something for them too, to get them to come to Zombezi Bay. And that's, I think, really what we achieved with Brews and Bites. So it is a craft beer and food festival. It's a tasting festival. So we have 60 different draft beers, hard ciders, and hard seltzers available, and 20 unique food items. So all of this is not available during our summer operating season. It is a complete menu change, essentially, for Zombezi Bay, for Brews and Bites specifically. So guests can purchase a 6-item tasting card for $27. You can use it on multiple nights. You don't have to use it all in one night, but then you can just taste your way around the park. And the thing with these types of events, too, especially if you're coming out at 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're not looking to sit down with your family of 6 and have 2 pizzas. That's not the point of this. You're going to snack your way through the night. And that's really where Brews and Bites comes into play, where you can get those smaller samples and just snack your way through the night. And our food and beverage team has done an amazing job at creating a really good, diversified menu on both the drink side as well as the bite side. As far as what's my favorite so far, I can tell you what was one of the favorites of our guests first, and so we have our Sideshow Sid's Delicious Oddities. So at the entrance to Sinister Sideshow, we have Sideshow Sid, and she is our kind of our MC of the Sinister Sideshow. So she greets and interacts with all the guests as they're coming into that queue line. But then there's also our Sideshow Sid's food cart that is right beside her. And it's a twist on the normal types of things. So we have cotton candy there, but it's not normal cotton candy. It's butter flavored. We have spicy jalapeno flavored, peanut butter and jelly flavored cotton candy. So we switched it up and did something a little crazy. There's also a pretzel with pepper jack cheese, which is really good. So that's been one of the guest favorites so far. For me personally, is probably our barbecue porky fries, which is at our Surfside Grill. And that's fries topped with nacho cheese, pulled pork, and barbecue sauce. And it is really, really good.
I haven't even tried this. You cannot beat fries with pork and cheese and barbecue sauce.
No.
Impossible to do. That's awesome. Yes. I know it's Zombezi Bay, and it's, that's kind of the purpose of this, but you did mention the Columbus Zoo has kind of a daytime, more family-friendly Halloween event. So what can you tell us about Boo at the Zoo?
So Boo at the Zoo is our family-friendly event on the zoo side. It has been running now, I think we're 20-plus years at Boo at the Zoo. But this year is actually the first time, first for them too, where we've extended that to 5 weekends of operation. So it is now every weekend in October, as we will be running Boo at the Zoo on Friday and Saturdays until 9 o'clock at night, and then on Sundays until 5. And it is a great family experience. You do have the rides available, so you have Tidal Twist, as well as the train carousel on our Dinosaur Island boat ride on the zoo side. We do candy handouts as well, so all the kids can dress up in costume, come through and get their candy. And it is one of the bigger events for the zoo. And it also kind of, I think I mentioned it early on in this, but it plays into the fact now that between Boo at the Zoo and Zombezi Bay, we really are a one-stop shop for Halloween in Columbus, Ohio. So, I think we kind of get lost in the fact of, especially on the zoo side, families are, 2 adults and an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. Well, families come in all shapes, sizes, ages, and especially now we have an attraction and a whole location where you can come here with your younger kids and go check out Boo at the Zoo while the teens can go over to Zombezi Bay. You can do it all here now. So that is another really cool feature that we have to offer at this property.
I've got to ask because I walked into Sam's Club yesterday and they have Christmas decor. So, and I know the Columbus, it's like war on Halloween, war on Thanksgiving. But what can you tell us about wild lights at the Columbus Zoo? What's coming up? What can we expect this year?
I walked into Lowe's last week to buy something for setting up Halloween, and I saw a Christmas display, and I couldn't believe it. But yes, we do have wild lights here at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, and wild lights, again, that's especially as we transition out of Boo at the zoo, it's only about a 2-week difference before wild light starts at the zoo. We have over 2 million lights. It runs from mid-November until the weekend after New Year's, which I believe this year is January 2nd. And it is one of the most popular events in Central Ohio. Compares for the zoo, it is second only to our summer operating season for our busiest time of the year. Some of those December weekends, especially if the weather is good, those are actually our biggest days ever, is what we've done during wild lights, not during the summer. So it is that popular of an experience here in Columbus. And it's a fantastic experience. We have a main lake in the zoo, and we do our light show all around that main lake. So there's a great viewing opportunity, of pretty much a 360-degree viewing opportunity around that lake, in addition to all the other attractions that we have at the zoo. So yeah, if you're in the Columbus area, really anytime during the fall, going back to the fact that we are a family of parks, we have 500 acres here in Powell alone. We now really have something going at any point in the year, and there are all kind of opportunities for you and your family to check out all that we have to offer.
Awesome. And hopefully this will be going live the first week of October. So what are the remaining dates left in the season for Zombezi Bay, and where can people go to find out more information?
Sure. So Zombezi Bay will be open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday nights from 6 to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, and 6 to 10 on Sundays. And that will be October the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And then starting October 14th, that Thursday, we go to Thursday operation as well. So from October 14th on, we'll be open Thursdays through Sundays, 6 to 10 on Thursdays, 6 to 10 on Sundays, and then 6 to midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. And to get all of that information, to our dates, hours, tickets, to purchase tickets, and all the information about all of our attractions, you can do that at ZoomBeziBay.com and find out all that information there.
I love it. You got to don't forget to add that extra. Oh, I don't know if ZombieziBay.com will go to. I'm sure it'll redirect. They've thought of everything here.
Yes,
for sure.
It will redirect. It's funny. We spent a better part of 13 years teaching people how to say Zoombiezi Bay, and then we threw that curveball in now to add Zombezi Bay on top of it.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, anything else you want to you talk about or promote before we tie a bow on this podcast and send you back out into the darkness?
I think we pretty well covered it. We're extremely proud of Zombezi Bay and the event that we have created here, and it's only going to get better from this point forth. So definitely, if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, please come check us out, and I do not think you will be disappointed.
You've sold me. I will be there next year with bells on. We're making it happen.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster101 podcast. Make sure you're checking us out. Nick did a really good review of Zombezi Bay, kind of ranked the haunted houses, and he was also at the preview night. So we've got a lot of good Zombezi Bay content on Coaster101.com. Also, be sure to check us out. We're on all of the social medias at Coaster101, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I think we have an account on too. TikTok, all of those things we're on. If you want to connect with the show, have any questions, comments, concerns, fan mail, or hate mail, shoot us an email, podcast@coaster101.com. And if you're listening to this show, make sure you're doing all of the other buzzverbs for podcasting: liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, telling other people to listen, telling your friends, telling your enemies, all that good stuff. Helps us get great guests like Anthony. That's always good when we get great guests because it results in a better listening experience. That's what we're about here. As always, thanks to JM Music Design for our theme music. For Nick and Anthony, I'm Andrew, and thank you all so much, and we will talk to you all again soon.